Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we're doing something a little different because I am currently inside the Grand Canyon.
You're recording from there? This is live from the Grand... Oh.
You know what? Yeah, let's lie. Let's lie to the listener. Make it sound like we have this super technologically advanced system. I'm on vacation right now, so we decided to record an episode for you while I'm gone, because we care. We care a lot about you listeners. If you didn't know, we really care deeply about you. We are trying to find all of you to write you and put you on our Christmas card lists,
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing today is a Codex discussion, a lecture series. That sounds boring. A discussion. Maybe some debate. Who knows what'll happen? But mostly a discussion about what makes an MMORPG, a MMORPG, if you will, good. What makes a good MMORPG? And Tyler, do you want to get started on it with a little history, and then we'll go into like a little discussion?
Well, first, before we get into talking about what makes an MMORPG good, I want to ask a question of you, Mike. What do you think? What do you think makes an MMORPG? And I don't mean like, it stands for massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Therefore, if it is that, it is an MMORPG. I mean, what does it mean to you for a game to be an MMORPG?
Okay, I'm going to say that, part of me wants to say open world, but that's not necessarily the case, So I think you need to use the massive amount of people playing with you in a way that's constructive towards a common goal. And I think that's what makes it massively multiplayer online. And you got to be pretending to be someone else.
Right.
What makes... Well, that's not true necessarily, because Second Life, that's not true, You can
be yourself in Second Life, or you can be someone else.
Yeah, so I think it's a group of people together in an online video game trying to achieve a common goal, or at least interact with each other. Really, it's just interaction,
Mm-hmm. What does massively mean to you then? Because there's plenty of multiplayer games where we play with people and we interact, right?
I would say massive. We're talking the whole player base. We're not talking about a number. We're talking about you have access to the entire player base. Are they always in an instance with you? No. But because I'm thinking of I'm comparing it to Battlefield, where you got 64 people on 64, or no, 32 people on 32 people, 64 people total. That's a lot of people. Okay.
But
that's
you wouldn't call that a massively multiplayer.
No, because you're also just playing death matches. I feel like the key thing with this is it's a lot of people, but you're also all working together for something, and you're in a world together.
I think that's what makes it for me is the persistence of the world. When you log off, things happen in that world without you, right? In Battlefield, when you log off, sure, other matches are going to happen, but you wouldn't say the world is being changed while you're gone, right? It's not going to be in a different state when you come back, right?
Gosh, Tyler, you should have gone first. That was really good.
Well, I had some time to think about it while you were talking. So
while I was stumbling through my thoughts,
you weren't stumbling. You were given what it means to you. You can't be wrong.
I mean, I think it really for me is about the interaction with other people.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing for me, because I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, you interact with people on Battlefield or Call of Duty, but they're mostly just fighting you and then sending you mean messages. So this, at least sometimes they send you nice messages in MMOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's. Oh, sorry.
You ready? You ready for the other one?
Yep.
An economy.
Oh, that's really good. That's good line to draw, because a game like Destiny has some sort of economy, but not really a player-based economy, right?
Oh yeah, I loved when I was, because I never played WoW. All right, I never played WoW, except I played one trial demo of it when I was in college, because I took a rhetoric to video game class and I had to play some WoW. But I loved watching videos and reading articles about the economy of WoW, because there were items that would go really up in value and go really down in value. They'd fluctuate like a real market does. It fluctuates.
I learned about markets playing RuneScape, because if you could buy something in one area and sell it in another for more than what you bought it for. If you went to where people were fishing and offered to buy the fish from them there, they'd sell it to you really cheap or cheaper, because it was easier for them to do that and not have to take it to market themselves. But then I could take it to a big city and sell it for more. And that's how I made a lot of money in RuneScape.
Wow, you were a middleman in RuneScape.
Yeah. Providing a vital service of transport.
I was getting scammed out of a mithril longsword, and here Tyler's selling fish on the side.
Oh, I got scammed too. I think we all got scammed.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to those people that were scamming people in RuneScape. You know?
Yeah.
Because that guy, I remember, so I got scammed out of a mithril longsword. He was like, I would describe it as he was negging me. You know that term of like guys that insult people to try to sleep? You know? He was like that, but he was negging me into giving him this mithril longsword, and then he'd give me something like it was money or a better one or something. And like my buddy was like, don't do it, dude. But then you have that little kid brain where you're like, but I could get something better, you know, and you're in the grind. You're like, oh man, I just want to get more powerful and go in the wilderness. And he totally bamboozled me. And then apparently in RuneScape, there's this thing called the hole. I don't know if it was real or not, or it was rumored, where that's how they would ban players. They just move your character into this hole where you can't do anything, and they're just stuck there. And I'm going to look up if this is real. That's a
good idea.
Yeah. But the whole RuneScape, I think it might be real. Oh, man.
Well, we're going to get into it, I guess.
Oh, no. I don't know if it's real or not. The black hole it was an early punishment system.
Well, there you go.
Ready? This is from the RuneScape wiki. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
The black hole, also known as Thordur's black hole, was Jagex's early punishment system back on RuneScape Classic. Before the banning system was implemented, players who were misbehaving were sent to the black hole. It existed throughout most of 2001, but was removed by December at the same year. So you would essentially be in a place of total blackness where the player could not move and you were blocked from teleporting, and players were sent to the black hole for an indefinite period of time before being taken out. So this guy steals from me and I'd be like, this is you, this is where you're going to go there. And then they just teleported away and nothing happened, I'm sure. But it was it's weird because like I hated that in the moment, but that's one of those memories that's going to stick with me about an MMO for the rest of my life.
And you learned a lot about yourself and a lot about human beings. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
I would argue that RuneScape prepared me for the real world and like scamming, because I have been so paranoid now about like pickpocketing wherever I travel, because I don't want someone to steal my real life mithril longsword, which is we all know is my phone. That's my phone. Right. It's my mithril longsword. So, but no, that's what I remember from RuneScape. But the economy thing, like there's this people that just play these games to get gold, like just become successful in this game and make money. Because you can actually do stuff with that money in an MMO. We can't even, I don't even know if we'll touch on it, but people selling items for real life money.
Yep. That's definitely a real thing.
Yeah. Didn't Diablo 3 had that? Would you consider Diablo 3 an MMO?
Oh, see, that's an interesting question too. I don't know. It has an economy in the form of the auction house, and it had a real money auction house at one point too. So it has that economy. I don't get the feeling that the world doesn't feel persistent to me because it's randomly generated every time you come back. And it's like when you party up with whoever you're partying up with, you're dropped into an instance, and the next time you come here, it'll be completely different. So the world is different, and you don't feel a connection with all 10 million other people playing a game. You only feel the connection with like the 4 or 5 or however many you're running with at that moment. Like that's the only thing that matters in that moment.
And I think we just answered that question about Destiny by you explaining Diablo 3, because you definitely drop into instances.
Yeah.
In Destiny 2 and Destiny 1.
Yeah.
But there are like open areas, like patrol mode areas.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel that same like MMO. I feel like an MMO also, you walk out of town. You can teleport, obviously, and fast travel, but you're just walking out of town, and then you're in the world. Like, that's one thing that I loved when I played Elder Scrolls Online.
Oh, yeah.
I walk out of town, and I'm in it. I'm now in the world, and I'm out here in this caves nearby, and then you kind of go farther away from town, and it gets more dangerous.
And you see other people out there.
Yeah, I think you need that. Like, if we're going to talk about things that make an MMO good, we talked about an economy, but also I feel like a sense of danger. And risk.
Oh, man. I felt that when I played Final Fantasy XI, because I never got too far away from where I started. I never got very far in that game, but like I remember, so there's like 3 starting areas in that game, and you could pick one. I think it was like based on the race you played or something is where you started. And I started in one area, and my brother started in another area. But there was a 4th big city that you could get to by traveling, but it was so dangerous to travel there. You needed to be able to take on the monsters along the way because there's no fast travel. Or there was fast travel, but it was very limited. You could teleport only to like a few different locations in the world, not to like every city. So it was like dangerous to do that. And because it was so dangerous, it was so dangerous because of the losing experience and leveling down, you were taking a real risk when you went to that city. I never got there. I think my brother eventually got there. I never did. It was too scary.
Yeah. Is there anything more upsetting than in an MMO when you get like the reward or you're really close to the reward, then you die?
Yeah.
Because every game has a different like system. Like Elder Scrolls, you have like, you can spend like gems or whatever, like revive crystals to revive yourself right there, but you're like, do I want to spend these things? It's also one of the pay to play aspects of the game is using that stuff, and I think in WoW you become like a ghost and you got to walk back to your body.
Yep. You got to pick your body up. You got to do a corpse run.
Yeah. And then I don't remember how Guild Wars did it. It was also a corpse run, I think, in Guild Wars 1.
I think the second one is maybe a corpse run. The first one you died, I think you just come back, but with like death sickness. And it's like the more you die, the worse you are. Like it gets to a point where you're like, your abilities are only like 50%. And if everybody has died a whole bunch of times and your abilities are only 50%, you just kind of have to call it.
Yeah, so I guess we should talk about our own personal histories. The first foray, I played RuneScape, okay, but I didn't really get into it. I had to play it at my friend's house because I didn't have a computer that could play it, which is funny because now you can play it on a phone. But I built my first PC when I was 16, brag a little, and then I also bought Guild Wars 1 because my friends were playing WoW, but the idea of not having to pay a subscription fee was really good to me.
That is exactly why I played Guild Wars in high school also.
and so that was my first MMO, and I mostly played that by myself.
Yeah, and you could have CPU henchmen go with you on the missions, and like you didn't even have to party up.
It was really great. I was a big fan of it. I was a big fan of the idea of the searing that takes place that changes the whole game world. Like the tutorial is all beautiful and nice, and then the world gets seared, and then you have to like play after that. It was really fun. I never jumped into Guild Wars 2, and I also was trying to beat the story of. I was trying to follow the story of Guild Wars 1. It took me a long time to get there, but that's the one thing about MMOs where I feel like they always struggle, and this is the same for Destiny. I don't think it's the same for your current boo, Final Fantasy XIV, because you love it so much. But the stories make or break an MMO for me.
Yeah, I would argue that the story is not that important. Final Fantasy XIV has Shadowbringers specifically has a pretty cool story. But I think it's in spite of being an MMO and not because of it. Like, because I think I talked about this last week, but there's like a lot of moments in the storyline of that game where you're stopped and asked to do like chores that are put in this game just to make it longer, just to make it take longer for you to get to the end game. Because for reasons, they want it to take you longer to get there. And so they just put these things in the story to stretch it out, which is really frustrating. And one of the things I really didn't like about playing Shadowbringers.
Oh, see, I'm like, a story makes or breaks it for me. You can see it, and I mean, I think we've both come to the conclusion that Destiny, it's called a shared world shooter, has a lot of MMO elements, but it's not an MMO.
It's not super persistent, but I do feel like you're in it with all those other people, though. Like Diablo doesn't feel like you're in it with everybody else who's playing Diablo. I feel like Destiny does, even though you're only ever seeing maximum 11 other people in your game. I still think it feels a bit more MMO in that we're all working together to do a thing as Guardians. And yeah, we'll break off into our 3-person teams or our 6-person teams to do like specific things together. But overall, it still feels like it's the same world. That's what I get out of Destiny.
See, now I feel like the story makes or breaks Destiny for me, though. Like I was almost out on Destiny 2, and then Forsaken blew me away.
I love the story in Destiny, and it's not always told in a great way. Like the campaigns,
Curse of Osiris.
Yeah, and just like the amount of stuff that's available in lore. That's like, oh, you got to go into this menu and read a thing that's like not the greatest way to explain those things, but it also makes sure that the story doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. Like if they build a gameplay thing and they can't like put a storyline to it, they don't feel like they need to, and I think that's okay.
Do you think, and this is a speculation question, but that's what this whole discussion is about, the Codex discussion series. It's going to come out on a 4-part DVD that you're going to have to pay thousands of dollars for. But do you think they design MMOs with the game design elements first and the story later?
I have a feeling that a lot of that stuff comes together like separately. Like the game designers will design their game, and then the story people will write their story, and then at some point in development, the game designers say, okay, yeah, we've got enough of a core game here that we can start to put some story to it, and the story writers say, okay, yeah, we've got enough of a semblance of a good story here. Let's figure out how to make it, how to like put it into this game. I think that's kind of how it works.
Right. Yeah, they just like combine it at one point and then make it work.
Yeah, and then like after they've combined, there's probably a lot of story elements that get inspired by gameplay and vice versa.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah,
good answer. Okay, this is problem with the Codex discussion series. I had another thing I wanted to shift to. Oh, it was this. What makes a good MMO? Raids.
Oh yeah, but see, I don't think you need to be an MMO to have a raid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you don't have to be an MMO to have a raid. But if you claim to be an MMO and you don't have a raid, people are going to be furious.
That's right. And I think that a raid is a cool way to, because MMOs sort of by design, because they're subscription-based products or products that the developer wants you to keep playing forever, the way that they're designed is in a way that sort of is a little bit grindy and sort of rewards you less for your skill and more for your time put in. And I think raids are a really good way to reward your skill, because they're often just genuinely hard, but also the time that you've put in, because you often can't just jump into a raid as soon as you start up a game. I can't just like start up Destiny for the first time and go raiding with my buddies, which is in some ways kind of a bummer because it prevents people from playing with each other. But in other ways, that's what makes the raid so satisfying. Like when I finish the raid that I'm going to do for Final Fantasy XIV, it's going to feel so good because of this 50-hour campaign I did, the other stuff that I did to level up my character and my items and like get me ready to even go inside the raid. And then I got to do what the raid needs me to do, and it's going to feel really good by the end. And I think that MMOs are uniquely positioned to offer that experience for raids.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. I didn't know anything about raids. Like I had friends play WoW and be like, "Oh, it's raid night." And I had no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, me too.
And I didn't get into raids until Destiny. And I feel like if I'd have known what a raid was when I was 16 and everyone was playing WoW, oh man, I would have loved it so much. I got excited about it when I was like, when Destiny 1 came out, like 26.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it would have blew my mind then. Imagine when I was a 16-year-old. It would have completely changed my life, you know?
Yeah. I was kind of under the impression, in the early days of WoW, that it was this like treadmill of kill monsters to get loot, to kill monsters to get loot, to like this in this continual like cycling, but the game never really changed, just all of the numbers went up. But then getting into Destiny, I realized like raids are, part of it is having the right numbers, the raw numbers to get in, like for DPS checks or tank busters or healing checks or whatever. But also having the skills to be able to execute properly. Like if you don't know what you're doing in the gauntlet in Destiny, you aren't gonna pass. You're not gonna do the thing. Even if it doesn't matter what your stats are, you're not gonna be successful, right?
You're gonna get murked.
Right, and the same thing in like World of Warcraft raids. In Old Gear, if you don't know that you need to be dodging these laser beams a certain way, like it doesn't matter what your stats are, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, it's about the accomplishment, the feeling, the feeling of risk versus reward. You know, difficulty balance is so hard with these games.
Yeah, and I think the perfect balance for difficulty is if you have a minimum level that a group needs to be able to get into a thing, it needs to be completable at that level if you play perfectly. But you should be able to advance your stats to a point where the game is still hard, but it's much easier because you've put the time in to make your stats better. And I think Destiny does a really good job of that. If you're trying to play the raid on the first weekend and you're not you're not the highest level you can be for that raid, you're going to have a hard time, but not an impossible time. And then later on, once you have surpassed the raid power level by a certain amount, the raids still are hard because the way they do power in that game is such that you can only be so much higher than something. But you're going to have a much better time if you put the time in too. So there's an equation of effort and time that gets put in, right? Time to a certain point makes the effort easier.
Oh yeah. I feel like now I'm thinking about why I quit playing older MMOs as a reason why an MMO was not good. But the big thing to me about what makes an MMO good, and it's kind of on them and it's also on me, is you got to have a population that's active and willing to teach new people.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what's so cool about Destiny and Elder Scrolls Online is when I would post in an LFG for Destiny, I would find someone that would be willing to help me out. And when I would post in an LFG for Elder Scrolls, there were people chomping at the bit to help me out and have me join their clan because they're so desperate for people.
Mm-hmm.
They just want people to be as into the game as they are.
Yeah,
and
so they'll help you by teaching you everything you need.
Yeah, which is why I feel like I quit playing Elder Scrolls because as a solo player, it was a poor experience, but also that's not on them. That's on me. Does that make sense?
Being a poor solo experience is on you? Was it
think
designed to be a good solo experience? And then
no.
okay, so you were playing it in an unintended way.
They say you can. They say you can solo it, but at the same time, their app. It's a massive multiplayer online role playing game. You got to play with people. They did some cool stuff for me. They had matchmaking to queue into dungeons. That's something that makes an MMO good. You have to have matchmaking for some stuff. If you don't have matchmaking for an MMO, you're doing it wrong.
There are some people that would say that's when WoW got bad, was when they added matchmaking to WoW.
Really?
Yeah. There's that contingent of people, MMO players are there's lots of different groups within them. There are the people that love the world and love role-playing in the world and love the effort that it takes to get a lot of things done. When I talked about Final Fantasy XI and I talked about how it was such a pain in the butt to get a party together, to go out to the desert, to do the thing, and everything just took so long. There are some people that really like that and feels like that gives them, to borrow a phrase from EA, a sense of pride and accomplishment. In World of Warcraft, for a long time, if you wanted to run a dungeon, you needed to go to a town, get a group of people together who all wanted to run this dungeon. Then you needed to travel to the dungeon and you all had to get there and go in the dungeon as a party. And it's very different now because you can just bring up the dungeon finder and just say, I don't know, put me in a dungeon. There's upsides and downsides. Obviously it's much easier to play the content when it's match made, but you don't make as many friends. I think people started to have reputations as being a person you wanted to group with or not wanted to group with because you couldn't just leave a group and find a new one, or you threw all that effort away, right? So,
it probably pushed people into clans too.
Yep, it definitely did. It definitely did because you could just go into your guild and be like, "Hey, anybody want to do this thing?" And if you had a good guild, there would be a ton of people who wanted to play with you. Go
ahead.
I just like the idea of people having reputations of especially when the servers were very much isolated. Right now, there still are a lot of different servers you can play on for World of Warcraft, a server being a different instance of the game itself. If you make a character on a specific server, it only plays on that server. They've made changes to that now, so there's some cross-server stuff going on, which I think is good for the overall health of the game. But anyway, what it would be is if there were people on your server who had a reputation of being really fun to play with, that worked out for them if they were really good to play with. For people who had the reputation of being really bad to play with, people didn't want to play with them, and that was a sort of deterrent for being a jerk in this game, was because people would remember and you would want them to play with you so you wouldn't be a jerk,
Yeah, I think you have to have a balance is what we're learning from a lot of this stuff. You have to have match-made activities like dungeons, and then you have to have those activities where you have to have your clan, like raids.
Yeah,
and
that's what I love about Destiny. When people say they need to add matchmaking for raids, I say no way.
Nope. Yeah, no. Raids should be really hard, and they should be something where you got to get 6 people together to do.
Yep.
Strikes, that's where you get your, because it's your matchmaking's for newer players.
Mm-hmm.
It's for people that you have to have matchmaking to be a good MMO is my argument, because you have to get new people coming in.
And when you're playing an MMO too, you have a sort of like, there's a couple of different modes you can be in. There's like the relaxed, like I'm just trying to hang out and like, I don't know, craft some things or maybe run some dungeons. And then there's the try hard, like I'm doing this like crazy hard content. And I think you need content for both of those people. So the matchmaking stuff is for people who are just like, I'm just here to have a good time. I just want to hang back. I don't want to put a ton of effort into everything. I want to just group up with some people, have some laughs for a few minutes, get the thing done without too much trouble, and then go back to whatever I was doing. Which I think Destiny does really well, and World of Warcraft, like Dungeon Finder stuff, does really well. And then there's the hardcore, like, no, I need to have a group of people together to do this. We need to all be on the same page, and I don't want to do it with randos.
Yeah, I met someone recently who was really into grinding MMOs. Like that was they play games, they grind MMOs, and they move on to the next one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's cool, but that's not what everyone else's life and time is like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that, this is actually it kind of segues into the next thing. So do you think in order to be a good MMO, you have to have player versus player?
No, not at all.
I completely agree with you. Oh man, we almost had another story debate again. You guys remember that story debate that was so aggressive 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, I don't think it's important at all. I think player versus player is just another game type. And if you do it well, it's really fun. And if you do it poorly, it's not fun, but I don't think it's required by any stretch.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of PvP in the conventional MMO a la WoW or Elder Scrolls Online or Guild Wars, that's kind of added on to give you another thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm even reading here for Guild Wars that when PvP came out, you could use your player or you could just get a PvP exclusive character that was already max level.
Yeah, the first Guild Wars was really all about the PvP. Like you played PvE to like sort of unlock skills and stuff. That the idea was then you would take those things to PvP. And so they gave you the option to just make a character that was already max level. You just couldn't do any of the normal like PvE stuff on that character.
That's cool. I like that. Give people
if you
a
want to try
shortcut.
new builds or things like that, you could just make new characters all day long.
Yeah.
And not have to like play through the whole game again.
Which is good. You know, you need to have some sort of shortcuts for people so they can at least play the content.
Yeah. I think
PvP content.
WoW has probably okay PvP. Final Fantasy's PvP it's there, but I've never played it. I played it a couple of times to see what it was like, and it was just not fun. So I just don't bother with it. And I don't think the game's worse off because of it.
Now, if you recall, when we were playing Destiny 2, and I had just gotten Forsaken, and I was playing with you on PC. This is before I left LA. Okay. I was upset that a Blessing of Light cost $30 to level up my character.
Oh yeah, that would boost you to the max level, right?
Yeah, and then you were like, it should cost that much though, because you're skipping all the game, you know. And I was a little bummed about it. And now, the more I think about it, the more I agree with you, because what you're doing is you have a Blessing of Light for sale, sure, because you're trying to make money and you're a company, that's fine. But also, half of the fun of an MMO is the level. It's the journey, you know?
Yeah.
It's you remember the things you did to get to that max level. And that's what's fun.
That's right.
Because I'm not the kind of person that grinds one thing over and over again to get optimacy when I'm trying to level up. You know, I'll play everything and I remember the fun things I do, you know?
Yeah. I have, I think since we talked about this, then my feelings on level boosts in MMOs has changed. I have very strong feelings that they should not exist at all.
Ooh, this is a hot take, I think. This is definitely a hot take.
So hot take, if you have people who are willing to pay you so that they don't have to play your game, that means your game's bad. Right? Because people will pay you to not play it.
I love this.
That's just, I'm just stating facts here.
I don't even think this is a Doritos. This isn't even a hot take anymore. This is a Doritos Locos take.
Yeah,
you know,
Doritos Locos take. If like it's like, so the thought process there is okay. So it takes a long time to get from the start, from new player to the stuff that new player wants to play, right? It takes a long time. There's a reason for it to take that long time, but we'll give people the option to skip that like if they pay us money. And so basically what you're saying to that person is, hey, we know you don't want to play our game. Here's an option for you. Pay us more money and then you don't have to play it. I think if you're going to release expansion packs to an MMO or new content drops or whatever that are going to make people like further and further behind, I think you should make catch-up mechanics. So rather than making me pay to skip the story stuff that I didn't play in Final Fantasy XIV, like I didn't play the third or the second expansion, Stormblood. I just skipped all of the story in that and I paid money to do it, even though I felt gross doing it. What you should do is you should just say, hey, we know not everybody wants to start from the beginning of Final Fantasy XIV's story because it will take you like 250 hours by the time you get to the end of it. So we'll let you start at the beginning of the next expansion pack, right? And and we'll let you create characters that start out at whatever level, like 10 levels below. I think you should just be able to do that. And I think Final Fantasy is a little bit of a different beast because of the way it does characters. Like you really are only supposed to have one character in that game, so you're just paying to level up classes. But I think if you think you need to offer a way for people to skip ahead, you should just offer that, not necessarily for free, but you should redesign your game so that that part of it is not a burden or a pain or something that somebody would pay to skip. Anyway, Doritos Locos take on level boosts in MMOs. That's me.
I like that. My other idea would be for a game like Destiny, you have to play the story missions. Make them play the story missions.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Instead of having that stupid XP meter that means nothing, just make it so they get a level every story mission they play. You know? There's no more XP meter, just so it's like proving that you caught up with the story and you got that.
Yeah.
But I don't have to go grind Crucible. I can just play the story.
Yes. And if you think, if as a game designer, you're saying, hey, I think playing through the storyline up to this point is very important. I think it's very important that people know what's happened so far so that they are prepared to play the new stuff. I think that's an okay stance to take. Then you should just not offer ways to skip. If you think it's important that they know all the things, don't let them skip.
Oh, man. I'm loving this. I'm loving this discussion series. We're having some hot takes, some Doritos Locos takes. Oh, it's giving me tingles. Right. Big fan. So, to sum up what we have so far, a good MMO, it's got to have raids. It's got to have raids. It's got to have story's not important, but it's also got to have a good economy. You know, you got to.
Economy is big, I think.
What
I think
about
that's what really makes an MMO to me. I think that's one of the the checkboxes of is this an MMO or is it like a shared world shooter or something else? And the checkbox is there a player economy? And if you've got that, you may be an MMO.
Oh yeah. Also, you got to have that persistent world.
Yes.
Persistent world. Another thing that we just mentioned is you got to have some sort of good it's got to feel worth it. The grind's got to feel worth it. You know?
And I'm happy to play same content over and over again, but make it feel good when I get to the goal.
I think that was kind of why I also left Elder Scrolls Online, is because I was playing the single player story and I got to a certain point where it just felt like I was in a dead spot and I had to grind up to the right level to do it. And I was grinding and grinding and grinding. And then I realized I'm playing the same mission over and over again. And some people like a grind. I'm not a fan of a grind as much as other people are, which is why I kind of avoid MMOs, you know? Destiny is about as far as I go. But I give up on grinds in Destiny all the time. For example, the competitive grind I just gave up on because of this vacation. I realized I'm not going to hit it, so there's no point in trying. But you got to have that reward to the grind. And then the other thing that I was going to mention, and it keeps it's items. Right? How do you, we talked about the rewards got to be worth it, but you got to have items that make you feel cool.
Yeah,
or something to make you feel cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because I feel like I'm thinking about Destiny as always, because I'm always thinking about Destiny, but the exotics in Destiny, the good ones at least, make you feel cool.
Destiny has, in that sense, has the best item system of any MMO, because there are guns in that game or pieces of gear when you're talking exotics that truly change a playstyle and how you play the game. And I don't think enough MMOs have stuff like that. Too many like item systems are like, this is just stats for you. You put this on and it's stats, right?
Looking at you, Jotun.
Yeah, Jotun is so fun.
Jotun, a Thunderlord.
Yeah.
Is it Dubious Volley? No, it was called Dubious Volley before it came out. The rocket launcher that shoots Wardcliff Coil.
Oh, yeah.
It was actually called Dubious Volley, I think, when it was like a code name or whatever. But yeah, Wardcliff Coil is cool because you got to like, it's a rocket launcher you shoot, and then you got to kind of like move it across so you can get as many enemies with it as you can.
Yeah.
Also just exotics that make you feel cool. But yeah, I think you got to have good items that make it stand out. So you feel powerful.
Yeah, I think a lot of games, many MMOs over the years, actually, the ones where it's just stats, I kind of wish that they would abstract the look of an armor from the stats the armor gives you, and maybe not even say that those stats are coming from the armor. Just be like, hey, do this event to unlock these armor types that are like looks for you, and like do this other thing to progress your character's stats. I think it's okay to make those two things separate. And I think Destiny is sort of starting to go that way in Shadowkeep with the Eververse gear being just ornaments for any legendary gear. I would like to see them take that a step further and just say, when I get a piece of armor, I have the look of that armor as an ornament, or however they want to do it. And then whatever I'm currently wearing in that slot, I can just put whatever armor I want over that to look to like be the looks of it, like how it looks, I think. Because there's stats and there's fashion, and those things are conflated too much in current MMOs, Destiny included, but I think they're taking a step in the right direction. I'd like to see that just separated completely. And some game like WoW has the transmogrification system, which sort of extracts that. I think Final Fantasy XIV has the glamour system, which is very similar, but they're still not fully separated, and I would like to see that.
Yeah, I think that's good. That makes a lot of sense to me, Tyler. You got an agreement. You got a co-pilot in this flight of MMO goodness. It's me. Feel good?
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Last thing I want to talk about. How do you feel about a subscription fee?
Ooh. Well, so I think for subscription fees, I mean, it comes down to, is what I'm paying for worth it? When I play Final Fantasy XIV, I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of because I enjoy the game enough to pay for it monthly. And I think the content that they put out justifies the subscription fee most of the time. When there are long lulls and nothing new is coming out, that doesn't feel great. But I do acknowledge that like server infrastructure isn't free and games cost money to maintain. So I'm okay with that in lieu of like a more predatory microtransaction system. I think I like Destiny's system the best because so you pay once for the box. You pay yearly for an expansion pack plus a like an annual pass for content for the rest of that year for all the new content drops. So it ends up being probably $60 or $70 total per year if you're buying the expansion pack and the annual pass. I think it incentivizes them to put out new content because you're not going to buy that annual pass if there's no good content coming on the horizon. I think for the subscription fee, there's a little bit of an incentive to just keep people playing as long as possible. And whether that's done by new content or not is sort of optional. So I think the way Destiny does it, because the annual pass is optional for Destiny, they need to make it worthwhile. So when they put content out, they have to make sure that content is worth the money and not just keeping the wheels moving, right? Not just keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
How do you feel about subscription fees?
I've never paid for one, so I feel kind of strange about it. But I get that feeling of worth that I don't really feel. I guess as I pay for Destinies, obviously, but I like the idea of a one time I don't have to worry about it. I think I naturally just get nervous by things that charge my credit card every month.
Yeah.
But I'm torn because I'm thinking about the Elder Scrolls Online system again, where there is no subscription fee, but if you get the subscription fee, you level up faster. Which is a big.
That's
a big one.
when payment starts to shift into like we're giving gameplay advantages to certain players, that feels bad. I think Destiny maybe gets into that a little bit with like, there were a lot of good weapons that came out with Black Armory, and if you didn't pay for the subscription fee or the annual pass, I don't think you had an ability to get those things. And so
yeah, you did.
There were certain things that were gameplay affecting in that way, where you could say, oh, I lost that match because I don't have the good gun that is only available if I had the annual pass. So that is definitely a thing to worry about, I guess.
I should mention too that it levels up the XP part faster, not the end game part faster.
Okay.
So
it gets you to end game faster.
It's shortcutting you faster. It also gives you a thing that gives you this bag that can hold unlimited crafting items, which you'd think is kind of weird, but crafting items legitimately fill up your inventory.
Oh, yeah.
In Elder Scrolls Online, to the point where I almost bought it just for that. I'm glad I didn't, because I ended up dropping the game and just not playing it because Destiny Forsaken came out and I was just all in,
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be opposed. Like, if you told me, if Bungie was like, hey guys, we're doing a subscription model starting tomorrow, I would pay for it. I'm in.
I totally would too, especially if it was subscription in lieu of an annual pass. So it's like, oh, we'll still have the expansion pack every year. It's going to be a big, huge content drop. But then you need to pay, I guess it would be probably $5 a month if it's costing the same as an annual pass. It would be like, you need to pay $5 a month and you'll get Black Armory, Joker's Wild, Season of Opulence, that level of stuff. I would be on board to paying it. I think that's risky on their part because it's much easier to sell me on an annual pass for $40 when I'm like totally stoked on the game, like drop a new expansion pack. I'm totally into this game because there's so much new content. I'm super stoked. And then say, hey, for $40, you can get the rest of the content that comes out for the rest of the year. That sounds great to me. If you say, hey, for $5 a month, you can get the rest of the content. Maybe after 2 months, I decide, I'm good on Destiny. I stop paying the subscription fee. You stop getting your money. But if I get tired of the annual pass content, well, I already bought it. So like
that's
Bungie
true.
has their money, right? So it's
You're
probably
locked in.
better as long as you can get people to buy in to that annual pass model. It's probably better in a business sense for companies to do it that way. Although if a company like WoW or a company like Blizzard with WoW or Square with Final Fantasy 14 can put out content to keep you paying that subscription fee, it's about $15 a month. They're getting way more out of me than Bungie does. So
yeah.
I guess.
By the way,
there's just two different ways to do it, I guess.
There's one thing I am not opposed to, and I actually really enjoy about MMOs, is I love the free-to-play demo style. I really like that as a consumer because, for example, Destiny's coming out with that new light thing, and I actually have a hunter that I've never leveled up because I want to see what new light is like.
Yeah.
I'm purposefully not playing this hunter because I want to play new light when it comes out just to see what they're doing with it. But I mean, that's how I played WoW when I did that paper in college, is I just used the free-to-play first 10 levels or whatever, and I played that.
That's so much better than like a 7-day free trial or something like that, is where it's just like you can play for free up to a certain point in the game, at which point you're going to have to pay to continue, which means they need to make sure that what they put in there is good. And it lets you, like, when you play a new MMO, you know pretty quick if this is for you, right? You've been playing for 2 or 3 hours, you know, hey, this has been really fun, or I can see how this gets so much more fun. I'm super stoked. I'm into it, right? But sometimes you start up a game and you go, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm good. And like, no harm, no foul. You're out. They're out. No problems, right?
That's how I feel about when you were talking about Final Fantasy 14 having that. It's up to level 35 or something.
Yeah, which is a pretty decent chunk into the game. Like if by level 35 you're not sure if you like this game or not, it means you don't like it. So just put it away.
See, and I like that. I also want to try, like, there's a lot of MMOs I've wanted to try.
Yeah,
I think Star Wars: The Old Republic was one because I love KOTOR. I think I've made it abundantly clear on this podcast how much I love KOTOR. But
yeah,
I never played The Old Republic because I'm like, online. But I think it might be free to play now, and because of that, I might give it a shot.
It is free to play. It's one of those like pay for convenience or pay for perks things. So like you get more inventory space if you pay, things like that. A lot of people consider it like KOTOR 3 because the single player like the storylines for each class are so good, and they're all pretty single player. So you can just play it, and you can play through the story for free. Like that's part of what's included for free. So you can really play it like it's KOTOR 3 in that sense.
I'm even more into it now. Look at that, Tyler. Learning new things on Codex.
Man, making me want to give it a download. Maybe we should give that game a shot.
Just for fun, you know?
Just for funsies. What's the harm, right?
No harm, no
I get a
foul in
third
that.
game that I'm addicted to? No problem.
Yeah, we just stopped doing everything except this podcast and video games, and we go very broke. Well, this was good. This was really good. I enjoyed doing this as a I'm in a canyon right now podcast.
Yeah. Less history and more just discussion on one of our favorite genres.
I'm going to call it Codex Discussion Series 1 MMORPGs. That's what I'm going to call it. You know?
I like it.
Not quite as catchy as a chocobo named Desire, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for listening. As always, you can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can contact Tyler on Twitter at SneakerElph. You can contact me at Mecoletta, MECOLETTA. You can subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can rate and review us. You could go to your local supermarket and scream the podcast name. That's an option.
If you do that, make sure you film it and send it to us.
And then we will play it. We will play you screaming the podcast name in a grocery store. And I bet you people will listen to it after that. That's just good.
For
guerrilla
sure.
marketing.
That's good publicity, you know?
Yeah. No press is bad press. And with that, thank you again for listening. And I'll talk to you next week, everybody. Bye.
Bye.